As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. I want to talk with you today very much on a heart level. And what I mean is I'm very attuned to the fact that many of you have come to the realization recovery from narcissistic abuse is not a quick fix. How many times have you thought, I so want to get away from the influences and the dominance and the power that individual has tried to wield over me, and I find that it's harder to get away from some of the old habits that it creates than I originally thought. Now, typically, when you've been exposed to narcissistic abuse, it creates what we refer to as complex trauma. And when we talk about complex trauma, we're talking about trauma of a sort where it happens over and over and over again. Now, some of the traumatic experiences may not be the really large ones where they're experiences where it's just glaringly obvious. Sometimes it is where you're on the receiving end of some grossly inappropriate behavior, but many times they're just the old death by a thousand cuts. There's just this reminder over and over and over. You don't measure up, and then when they whittle away at your sense of resolve, over time it can have its effect. Let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Many of you have been on the receiving end of lots of experiences of mistreatment of a small nature. I don't want to do this with you, or no, that's not right. And so you just kind of determine, well, I just can't get any kind of coordination, even down to the simple kind of things. You know that perhaps you've been exposed to a relationship where games have been played with the topics of trust or honesty. It's like, I don't know who to believe. I don't even know what's accurate anymore. You can have been on the receiving end of repetitive invalidations. Your feelings, your perceptions, your interpretations about life have been routinely cut down. You don't know what you're talking about. You've had many messages. Sometimes they're overt, sometimes they're covert, implying that you just have bad judgment. You're just a screw up waiting to happen. And sometimes it can just be through the eye roll, and other times you can be on the receiving end of loud insults because of that. Speaking of which, part of your complex trauma is that you've had to endure that narcissistic person's strong anger. And it can come out in a really ugly and harsh kind of way. And then when you've experienced that strong anger, then you have a fear for triggering it again. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, but in a negative sort of way. It could be that as part of your complex trauma, you've been on the receiving end of shunning or neglect, or refusing to treat you in a dignified manner. Maybe the shouting has died down, but still you have to endure all of that. Or it could be that you've been on the receiving end of negative comparisons to other individuals. Something to the effect of, why can't you be like this person over here? And then in general, you have not received your proper allotment, if you will, of goodness and general kindness and respect and reasonableness. And then even if the narcissist does come forward toward you, seemingly being kind and friendly, you find out later on it's just pretty much fake, or it's just fool's gold. So adding insult to injury, if you've been exposed to a strongly narcissistic person who is giving you this complex trauma feeling, then what can happen is that can become your norm, and you wind up gravitating toward other individuals who may treat you in a similar kind of way. And you're thinking, how did I get into this mess with these other individuals as well? So here's where I'm going to talk to you on the heart level. And I want you to ask, have you gotten to that place where you are ready to say to yourself, enough? Enough is enough. I don't deserve this. I don't want to be treated like this anymore. I'm going to move forward. What does that look like? Well, let me share with you that there is basically one primary factor that makes your recovery from narcissistic abuse and its trauma very difficult. And I want us to address that so that you can, in fact, move on. And that one factor is what I refer to as the feeling of negative uniqueness. In other words, there are times when you think to yourself, as I try to move forward, I just feel so alone. Who out there is really going to understand or appreciate what I've been through? There are so many layers to what I've dealt with. How can I explain it all in a clear kind of way? I feel so detached from healthy relationships now. How am I going to be able to go back and participate in something that I've experienced way too little of? And then another problem that's part of that feeling of negative uniqueness is you can think to yourself, to the outside world, that abuser may not look like an abuser. In other words, I may be running against an ad campaign that they're going to do on their behalf about how wonderful they are, which leaves me in a not wonderful kind of position. And then as you have this feeling of negative uniqueness, and then its accompanying aloneness, it can that narcissistic abuser's messages can echo inside of your mind. Maybe you'll think to yourself, well, you know what? When I was on the receiving end of abuse, it's not like I was the epitome of perfection myself. I didn't respond very well, and there are all sorts of negative things that person can say about me. But as you say that, I want you to remind yourself, nobody responds well to being abused. And so if you think, I didn't handle myself well, who does? And so I'm going to politely say, knock it off. You don't have to beat yourself up for not responding well. You weren't meant to respond well. That's you weren't meant to be treated that way in the first place. Or it may be that person's in your mind and you think, I see other individuals that are thriving. They've kind of suffered just like I have. What's wrong with me? And then the shame that you have received from the narcissist morphs into feelings of embarrassment. I'm embarrassed to be who I am. I'm embarrassed to talk about my circumstances. I recall one lady that I met with her when she was in her early 30s, and I had the privilege of finding out about her like 10 and 15 years later from other family members, and she was thriving. But when I met with her, she'd already been divorced 3 times. It's like, here I am, I'm 33 years old, and I've been divorced 3 times. I mean, who would want me? I'm used goods. I'm damaged. And so you can have those kind of thoughts. Who would have me now that I've been so damaged? Now, when you have this feeling of negative uniqueness, what you're really experiencing is what we might refer to as complicated grief. And in your complicated grief, you can be thinking, well, actually, I'm glad to be away from that person, but what's waiting for me? What's next? Or my feeling of loss is real, but my loss is accompanied by a sense of bitterness, and I just can't get rid of my bitterness. Or I want to feel optimistic, but I don't know if I can afford to do that anymore. And again, that's the narcissist in your head talking to you about how you don't have what it takes. Or you may think, the repercussions of, the price that I've had to pay for the abuse is just too much to bear. For example, the narcissist was abusive toward you, and it may be that you lost a relationship with a son or a daughter or a very close friend or someone else that you really want to be with, but there's a large ripple effect. Or it may be that you've a support system that you once appreciated and enjoyed has been severed from you. Or maybe you've been financially compromised, and so you think, well, can I get through that? So your ultimate question as you're struggling with your own negative uniqueness, your own feeling of aloneness from having been on the receiving end of abuse is, can you push through? Can you get past the pain and the grief realistically? Can you find peace? Can you find self-respect? Can you find new and reliable and more gratifying relationships? Now, my answer, and this is where I want you to hear me and hear me all the way, my answer is a resounding yes. Yes, you can. And it's going to begin by you honestly accepting the truth that the narcissistic abuser is a narcissistic abuser. They're a terribly unhealthy person. Healthy people don't treat you the way that you were treated by that individual. They can come up with all sorts of excuses, but they are an unhealthy person. Go ahead and acknowledge that, and don't make excuses on their behalf. And whatever you do, don't listen to what they're throwing at you, because it's coming from an unhealthy place. It's okay for you to call a lie a lie. When they tell you that you're unworthy or you have poor character, that's a lie. You can reclaim your character. You can certainly hold on to your God-given worth. It's part of who you are. I hope that that's something you can cling to, and cling to with all that you have from the inside out. Listen to the core message of your pain. The core message of your pain says, I didn't deserve this. Listen to yourself. I deserve decency. That's who you are. That's what you deserve by virtue of your humanity. Now, I'm wanting you to take the old golden rule that you may have learned as a kid: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And let's flip that around. Do unto yourself as you wish others would do to you. You want others to treat you kindly, and you want others to give you comfort and respect. Give that to yourself. It's your birthright. It's something that you should hold on to. The narcissist wanted to shut you down. They wanted you to disbelieve in yourself, but I'm hoping you can say, I have a voice. My voice deserves to be heard. Embrace your freedom. Freedom means you have the privilege to choose. Choose for yourself a much better way of life. Now, you're going to need to get support from other individuals, whether it's through therapy or a support group, or opening yourself up to trusted friends or family members who can understand, but don't give up on yourself. I know that I can sometimes get a little emotional when I talk about this, but the reason I do is because it bothers me greatly when someone comes along and says, I don't have any worth left. Yes, you do. Hold on to that. The narcissist filled you with a pack of lies. Give yourself truth, and then choose in freedom to follow your own good leading and your own good choices. Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what you're dealing with. If you haven't already responded, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so. We're going to keep more videos coming towards you. In addition, you know that I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. I'm a great believer in therapy. The people at BetterHelp are there with an entire team of licensed professional therapists. As you're trying to work this through, it could be very helpful for you to go through the link that we have provided below, and then answer a couple of questions, and then you get to select a therapist that you can work through. If that's a need that you have, please take care of yourself and do so. I'm so pleased that we have the availability for you to make use of such a service. Now, I've also had courses that I've put together, and each one has at least 25 teaching videos, and with each video are guided questions, and these are very meant to have a strong strong therapeutic value to you, hopefully a spiritual value to you as well. Anger games, this is me about your values, your boundaries, free to be, ready, set, connect, about going into healthy directions with your connections. We also have on my website my articles, my access to my webinars, and my podcasts. We have lots of resources. This is something I feel really strongly about, and I want you to be a kind of person that says, good things should come my way. If the narcissist was too unhealthy to offer it to me, I'm going to go ahead and open myself up to loving myself and believing in myself. I so want you to go in that kind of direction. And as you do, I hope that you can go further and further down the path towards accepting who you are and knowing that you can be a steady person. And in the end, I want you to know that there is peace at the end of the effort that's waiting for you. And along the way, you can find peace in the process.